meeting you right where you are on your foster care journey. This is the Forgotten Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Forgotten Podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Cabe, and I am so happy to be with you. If you are part of the foster care community, passionate about serving, or simply interested in learning more, we are here for you. In every episode of this podcast, you're going to hear from men and women who've experienced foster care to one degree or another. They may have grown up in the system, are caseworkers or foster parents, or other people who are here to bring you hope and encouragement. If you enjoy this podcast, please subscribe and share with a friend. Remember, you are not alone. I hope you enjoy the Forgotten Podcast. All right, well, Britanie, I first read your family motto when I was doing some prep for this interview, and that is "See a need, fill it." And I immediately knew when I read that I was going to like this girl. I'm excited to get to know you. But before we get into that, I also noticed on your Instagram profile, you have written a label of yourself as Jesus Chasing. And for our listeners, her Instagram profile is Becoming Fosters. That will be in our show notes. But you label yourself as Jesus Chasing. So let's start with that because that's first things first. What role does Jesus play in your life? And what does it mean to you to chase him?
Yeah, so that's a huge question, is it not?
Yeah.
He is the cornerstone of who we are as a family. My husband and I actually met at Bible college. We're from very different sides of the track and people you'd probably never pair together, but Jesus saw otherwise. And our marriage and our relationship and our family revolves around that. Like this idea of seeking God in every aspect of our lives and teaching our kids to do the same are huge parts of who we are. My husband is a pastor at Life Church here in Oklahoma. And it's just a huge part of who we are. And, you know, one of the things I love so much about foster care is this idea that we get to live that out. We get to live out the gospel in our home with our children. So not only are we telling our kids about the importance of Jesus and the role he should play in our lives, we're actually partnering together with them and being able to walk that out in real time with them.
Yeah. Which is critical. It makes that connection for them. It's not just something we say or we think, it's something we actually do.
Right. Exactly.
That's awesome. Very good. Well, let's move on to this family motto, see a need, fill it. Where did this motto come from? Why has it become so important to you?
Yeah, so I don't really know where it came from. Our family has more than one family motto, and one of them, most of them are kind of silly and like play along.
What are some of them?
Sure. Our three oldest daughters are all 2.5 years and under. Well, when they were born, they're 16, 14, and 13 currently for a few more months. And then we'll be back to 16, 15, and 14.
Understand.
Just back to back. But when they were younger, one of our family mottos was always coordinate, never match. So it was this idea, they're all girls. And so mommy wasn't buying 3 of the same dress.
Yes.
We were going to mix it up, but we were still going to look like we belonged together. So every Sunday morning, somebody would run into mom's room and say, "Mom, what color are you wearing today?" And if I said blue, they would know they could wear blue if they wanted, but also if they found any other color in their closet that looked good with blue, they could wear that too. So we were always ready. And this was, pre-Instagram, pre-Facebook. Yeah. We were always ready for that disposable camera picture on a Sunday.
That's adorable.
So we had some like that, just that things that the kids will never forget and just made, our home playful and fun. But see a need and fill it is something that has just been a part of our marriage. It was something we discussed pretty early on. We wanted some ideas or some mission statements that kind of would, encompass who we were as people. And one of them was to look for needs and to fill them. So not just, if we happen to notice something, step in and do what you can. It was actively looking for places where we could change something about a situation. and that was something we handed down to our girls too. So yeah, we look for homeless population standing on the street corners and giving them, water and a granola bar or whatever that might look like, a bus pass, whatever their kind of need is. We also try to dig into that need a little bit more instead of just assuming. So for those sorts of things, we might dig in a little deeper, but it was also like teaching the girls, when you're walking through the hall and if somebody trips and they drop all their stuff on the floor, like take that second and bend down and pick it up. Let that person know that you see them and step in that. So it's not about us. It's not about the girls. It's about being able to identify places where people could see Jesus through us.
I think that's so beautiful. I remember one time our family we had just got home from church and we had on our way home from church, and we had a bunch of donuts. And there was a homeless man standing on the corner, and we just opened the window and asked, we have tons of food right now. Would you like some? And so he's like, sure. And we started passing up. And our 5-year-old at the time, when the pink donuts got handed up, he was like, not the pink ones. Like, I think we can part from the pink one. It was funny.
That's hilarious.
That is awesome. So talk about how that then brought you into this world of foster care and foster parenting.
Yeah. So I had a friend remind me after our first adoption, I had a friend remind me, do you remember in high school when you used to talk about wanting to adopt and do foster care? And I was like, nope, don't remember that at all. But apparently it was something that was important to me at some point before I even remembered. But when we got married, I was young. I got married on my 20th birthday. Word to the wise, don't get married on your birthday because
come on.
like spread it out a little bit, like make those two separate celebrations. But what I do love about that is like all of my big milestones will be together. The year I turn 40, we'll be celebrating 20 years. The year I turn 30, we're celebrating 10 years. So that piece of it's kind of fun. But all of that to say, we got married really young. I was 20 and I had my first daughter when I was still 20. It was about 11 months later. I had my second daughter when I was 21 and I had my third daughter when I was 23. Wow. And so at that point we were like, we can't continue to do this. And so we decided at that moment that we were done having children biologically, but that we would keep our hearts open to whatever the Lord might have for us in the future. And so 8 years after we had our youngest daughter, she was 8. And the reason we allowed that space was because we only wanted to foster kids who were older. So we only wanted grade school kiddos. So I wanted my girls to be old enough to be able to defend themselves if they needed to physically. I needed them to be able to mentally and emotionally be prepared for that and be able to defend those things in themselves. Because everybody listening probably has this really great awareness that foster care is not the easiest thing that you can choose to do for yourself or for your family. And so we wanted that space between what that kind of looked like. And so we started discussing that again when our youngest daughter was about 7. And we just really felt this pull and this call to this idea of, and honestly, it came from this place of like selfishness of like, we're older now, but we want a son and we want to like experience that. And, we can be the savior. We've seen the movies. We've read the news articles. Like we are the ones they're looking for. They're looking to place, non-white, school age and up little boys. I mean, that's what the story is that we all hear, right? Yep. And so that's kind of what we walked into it as, like this idea of like, we're going to rescue him. We're going to complete our family with this particular kid. And I can tell you 7 years later, we've never had that criteria in our home. But I can also tell you that our first placement came to us when she was 2 days old. First thing, 2 days old, second thing. And she was white, third thing. third thing. And so she was like complete opposite of what we were looking for, but she changed everything that we thought we were looking for in foster care. Like Jesus used her big time in our story to rewrite everything that we've done in the last 7 years. So it switched from this idea of like, we're going in this to adopt. And actually I have a really hard time with that statement in and of itself. And we may or may not dig into more of that in a bit.
We will.
I just really struggle with that. But, it became this idea of like, we're in this to foster, like we're in this to get this kiddo back to where they're meant to be, whether that's home, whether that's a different adoptive home, whether that's our adoptive home, whatever that looks like. But it became not about us. And that's kind of how we walked into it selfishly.
Yeah. My goodness. There's a lot that I relate to you. I also got married young at 19. And my husband and I just celebrated 21 years. So you're just a hair behind us. And I did just turn 40. So you're just a little bit behind. But also heading into foster care was really out of an understanding of adoption. And it wasn't until we went to foster care classes that we really understood what this foster care was, to foster kids and with the hope of reuniting.
Yeah.
So I do know that through your journey, there are a few themes that have stood out to you. You mentioned one already, or ways God has changed you. So I think it's a good time now to dive into some of that. So let's just go right to that. You really did start foster care with the goal of adoption. Now you talk about the importance of fostering to foster. I mean, you've already said this, so just let's go deeper in there.
Yeah. So I think what kind of happened for us was when we got into it, and of course, you can do all the classes, you can read all the books. It's just like anything in life until you actually are doing it. Right. You don't know what you're doing. I tell people all the time, I was a perfect wife before I got married. Yeah. And I was a perfect mom before I had kids.
I was as well.
And then something happens and you become those things and you're like, what? I don't know how to do this. What am I actually doing here? Same thing with foster care. Yep. And so we got into it and we started to really like figure out what this was all about. Like we felt the pain and we felt the emotion and we felt the joy and we felt the sorrow and we rode the roller coaster of all those things. And we came out on the other side and we like looked at each other and we're like, there is so much more to this than what we ever signed up for. And we have to make sure that we're okay with that. And that's the direction we're prepared to head and take our family in. But also it became very clear that when we walked into this with, hey, we want to foster and we want to adopt the kid we foster. That pointed to this idea of we also, even if it was like subconsciously, we were willing and hoping for that family to fail.
Yeah.
We were looking for them to mess up enough times or to not succeed or to not be able to reunite their family the way God intended for that to happen, because our goal was to keep that kid here with us and to be selfish about the situation. Yeah. And so we became really open-handed, which we always thought we were. Like our goal, you don't
always know until you know, right?
Exactly. And so we decided we were called to that. We were called to this idea of like really opening our hands and fostering to foster, like fostering to figure out what was best for that kid. Yes, we are their loudest and greatest advocate in this season of their lives. And we will fight, but we need to fight for what's best for them, not even necessarily what we might fully believe is best for them, but really like looking behind the veil, like removing that curtain from our eyes, removing the rose-colored glasses, and really getting down and dirty in the mess of what this is to navigate what that looks like for wholeness for this kid.
Yeah. That's amen to that. And I was interviewing Jamie Finn, who's another dear ministry friend, and she mentioned, and I will butcher this, but something just about how it's our mindset about birth parents that contributes so much to whether that child does reunite or not. Like it's the way, and I think it's what you're saying too. It's if we really have this idea that we're here to keep this child for us, then we're just not going to naturally do the things to go above and beyond to maybe build a relationship with their parents or provide opportunities for their parents to succeed, in ways that only we can. So I think it's just so critical what we are thinking up here.
Yes, for sure.
Well, you mentioned this already, but foster care is hard. We know this. And you even said it, you called it dreadfully hard, which I think is a fantastic word. I would agree with you. And so this is a huge question. So you're going to have to pick some, but what has been hard in your foster care journey?
Oh man, so much, so much. And I'm trying to not get ahead of our conversation and where we're kind of heading and navigating what I've shared with you and your team. But, I think what's been really hard is any parent can relate to this. Anybody who loves anybody can relate to this. You think about life in general and you think about people and, people are going to fail you and, you're going to face hard times, but us as parents or us as wives or husbands, whatever that role is for you, you're like, hit me with your best shot. Like I can take it. I'm going to hop right back up and I'm going to move on with my life. I might not hop up. I might drag myself up, but I'm going to be able to process and move on. You mess with somebody I love and game's on. We all have this mama bear is what maybe some people refer to that as. You have that in you. Well, when you bring foster care into your home, when you bring brokenness into your home, you can't help but be broken by that. And you're fully aware of that and what that looks like for you. But when you do that and you have kids of your own, you're also exposing them to brokenness. You're also, removing some of their innocence. Through the stories and through the relationships that they see being built. And I think about one particular moment, and it's one that I will always cherish. It's one of those pains that is so painful, but you never want to let it go away because you always want to remember how precious that was. We had a placement of a couple of little people. And they came at different times. They were siblings, but they came at different times. One of them we got straight from the hospital. Yet again, I don't know if you recall, but the beginning of this, I told you.
Older kids.
And so we get a call for a baby. She was 3 months old, but she had been in the NICU for the first 3 months of her life. She was born at 24 weeks. 1 pound, 6 ounces, little tiny.
Oh my goodness.
You could hold her in the palm of your hand. I met her when she was about 3.5 pounds, and I had to spend the week in the hospital with her, learning how to care for her properly because she came home on machines and oxygen and all the things.
Wow.
The day we left the hospital, she hit 4 pounds. And I only remember that because they were getting ready to issue us a car bed. I don't know if you've ever heard of such a thing. I had not. But it's something that you can only get at hospitals. And it's because if you look at your car seats, any car seat on the market is for babies who are 4 pounds and up. And so it's sort of like a bassinet for your car. So we were able to leave the hospital in a car seat, and we got her home and we walked through surgeries with her and a few other really pretty big things that me and my children and my husband had never experienced so close to our hearts. Yeah. Well, her brother ended up coming in care after her. It's a ridiculously crazy story, just like every foster care story, but he also came into care. And so they were with us, and about 8 months into our journey with them, it was time for them to return home. And the worker came to pick them up from our home. And I remember I was just snuggling this sweet baby because she was a year old, but she was still just so teeny tiny. And I was being selfish and just snuggling her, and the kids were playing with her older brother, and the worker gets there. And I remember dreading that moment. And we had already been crying for weeks because it's okay to be broken. And also feel the joy of them returning. It's okay to feel both of those things. There's no guilt in that. I never felt guilty about that. And no other foster parent should ever feel guilty about carrying both of those things at the same time. And I turned around to my kids to have them tell her goodbye. And I remember my 9-year-old at the time, she broke. And when I say broke, it was like this physical deflatation. I may have just made that word up.
I like it. I like it.
She deflated instantly and tears just streamed and she couldn't form a word. And I have never felt such brokenness. And it was overwhelming in our home. I mean, everybody who was there, who loved her so dearly, came to say goodbye and was crying. Her worker was crying. She had an older brother who had come with her worker who was 14. He had come as well and he was crying. It just was overwhelming. But it's a moment that still, 7 years later, still brings tears to my eyes. But it's something I never want to forget because it was an experience that was heartbreaking for me as a mom to watch my kids break. But then to watch that healing that was able to take place and watch Jesus repair their little hearts as we moved into the next step in our foster care journey, we would do it all over again. It was 100% worth it for those children. But that was a moment in our foster care journey where I was able to really see that change and that impact on my own children as well.
Yeah. And those are times it can be easy or natural for us to say, I think I did something wrong. Like I shouldn't have done that. But that just because it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Love does hard things.
Yeah.
And we get to do the hard things. So that's something I've been screaming lately. I have a sign in my therapy office that says, we get to do hard, or we can do hard things. And I changed it because it's one of those, one of those foam boards or whatever. Yeah. And so it now says we get to do hard things. That's where our growth comes. Yeah. That's where we get to expand and learn. We have been chosen to do the hard thing, and we would do it 100 times over.
Yeah. Amen. And we get to do the hard things, but we don't ever do it alone because we have a Savior and the Spirit in us. I mean, it is, that's awesome. And people around the globe who are also doing hard things.
Yes.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Okay. So there's no doubt, I don't think, that you can walk through foster care without experiencing some level of pain. I just think it's impossible. So why do it?
Isn't that here? This thing is really terrible. You're going to get really hurt. So come on.
Yeah. And why tell people to do it? Like it's one thing for you to do it. Why are you telling me to do it? And why are we proclaiming this to our listeners? Like you're going to feel pain. You're going to get stretched. You likely will head into depression. You will do it.
Do it. Come on, do it. First of all, do it so the rest of us don't have to do it all by ourselves. First of all. But secondly, like the reality is that we talk about the bad. You hear about the bad, you hear about the brokenness, you hear about the pain, but there is so much beauty in what we get to do. So we call it, so Will Smith is my on-screen boyfriend. He has been since I was a teenager, and he was the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. But I have always adored him, and he did a movie called Collateral Beauty. And that is now something that like I proclaim over foster care. That's the idea of collateral beauty. This really bad thing happened. Like Satan came in and he won the battle. Like he has broken this family apart. And the Lord has asked us, and am I equipped now? Yes. Did I feel equipped at the beginning? No. Do I feel equipped every single time I get a phone call? No. Every time it's a little bit scary. But the Lord has called us to put on our full armor and dive right in the middle of that battle, a battle that we didn't create, a battle that we don't know anything about, the battle that sometimes we don't know if we're fighting on the right side or the wrong side. We don't necessarily know what that looks like, but we dive into the middle of that battle so that we are able to experience the collateral beauty of what comes from that situation. If we're able to take the pain and the suffering off of a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, brand new baby, 15-year-old, whatever that looks like, if we're able to help them carry the weight that they've been carrying for just a little while, if we're able to carry that weight so that they can have the freedom to smile again, then it's worth it. So when you're able to see those moments of the teacher report at school saying, you have no idea, like he's gotten F's on every single one of these tests, but he scored a C+, and we're going to celebrate that that's a huge win. We're able to go, okay, like we can continue to do this because we want those little wins. When that little girl runs up to your husband for the first time after living in your home for 12 months and decides that it's safe enough to give him a hug. When you're able to experience those moments of true joy, of them being able to experience their childhood, when you're able to experience a moment with a mom holding her hand before court and like really connect with her and empathize with where she is, going, really, I'm only 1 or 2 different decisions away from where she is. I'm only a couple of steps. If I would have done this different, that could be me sitting here. When I'm able to like really sit down in those moments, beautiful things are able to happen. Relationships are built. You're building this, we have a spider web family. Like it doesn't look like anybody else's family, and we're cool with that. When I randomly get text messages from kids who left my house 6 years ago, or when I'm able to get a picture or a video sent to me from a mom whose kids were here 6 years ago, when you're able to create the support system for this family to be able to be whole again, it's worth it. It's worth it every single time. In my podcast, every single time, it's never easy. I'm never going to promise you that, but every time, 100% of the time, it's worth it. So do it. Jump in with us. There's plenty of support. There's plenty of resources. Don't do it alone. Don't seclude yourself, because we are going to do that because we're like, we asked for this. Nobody else here asked for this. We're not going to make them be involved where they don't want to be involved. No, let people get involved. Let people get dirty with you, and lock arms together with your community. And it can be the most beautiful experience of your entire life. And I promise, as hard as it is, and as many tears as you cry when one kid leaves, you'll do it over and over again.
Yeah. And I think a key thing you said was help them through their journey. I have found myself in places where I have tried to live their journey for them, the kids in my home, the kids in my care. And that is not our job, is to live their story for them. That is the job that causes great burden and overwhelm, because we are incapable. That is God's job, to work in them. But we do get to come alongside and help them. And so I think we're not, as foster parents, we don't go in there as the expert. We don't have to understand all the terms, and we don't have to understand it. We're not their counselor, and we're not all these things. There's a community that surrounds you and that should surround the kid. You are not the end all for this child. You are one piece. And that is very needed. So would you say, Britanie, that you are experiencing more Jesus than before you started foster care?
Yeah.
How has your relationship grown, would you say?
I don't know how people do anything without a relationship with the Lord. And that is a statement that I make with such humility and zero judgment. But life is so hard. It's so hard. And we're stepping into more hard. And if I did not have Jesus, I would be broken. We're all allowed to have moments of brokenness, and we should live in this broken space, but we also have relationship with a God who loves us and cares for us and brings healing and strength and growth. And I honestly could not do it without him. It's just, it makes me lean more into who he is, because even when I'm questioning and even when I'm angry and like, God, why did you call us to this? Or what are you doing? Or, God's okay with those hard conversations. Like you're not gonna hurt his feelings. You're not going to break them. He likes when you bring those things to his his ears and to his feet. He knows them. He already knows how we're feeling about a situation. But when we're able to say, I can't do this, I have to lay this down at your feet and I need you to do something in this moment, he's going to move. And it may not be the way, it may not be the way you asked him to move. It may not be the way you told him to move. It may not be the way you expect him to move. But he is going to change something about that situation that when you're able to look back and have some clarity around it, you're going to go, okay, I see you. I saw when you did that. And I'm going to thank you for that. And honestly, we always attempt, sometimes it's really hard, and that's okay. We always try to thank him in advance for the answers that are on their way, the answers we can't see, the hard times that we're going to walk through, like knowing that we've never walked through a hard time that we didn't make it out of. We've never had a hard day that we didn't wake up from. We're able to understand that all came from him. And we also understand that God's writing these stories. So it's not our responsibility, like you just identified. It's not our responsibility to take that on, because only God can do that. So once we're able to go, I'm just a player in this game, or I'm just writing these couple of chapters with the Lord for this child. My husband and I have this, we used to always just call it out from each other, and we've kind of stopped a little bit more. We should probably get back to it. But when we were having a hard time, we would always just look at each other and say, write the pages. Just write the pages, because we've been called to this season. We don't know what's happening next. We might not get to read the end of the book. We might not see the next chapter. But while we're in this, we're going to write the pages that the Lord has called us to write. And we can only do that through the strength of the Lord. So we've leaned in and understood too. Oh gosh. Okay. Understood too. Sorry, I'm wasting all this time.
This is not a waste.
All these we understand too, another way we're able to get closer to the Lord is this understanding of what Jesus or what God did when he sent Jesus to us. Like when he sent the Lord here, it was not to, pick roses and hang out with all the cool kids. It was, I'm sending him here and he is going to experience the worst time of his, I want to say existence, but he's always been in existence, but you know what I mean? Of his time on the earth, it's going to be full of pain, and it's going to be the worst thing that he's ever done. And you know what? At the end, I'm going to have to turn away from him for a moment because I can't watch that. I can't be in the presence of all the sin that he's carrying. I can't watch the hurt that's happening in that moment. So when we're walking through this and we're having to hold this child for however long the Lord's entrusting us, and then we're having to say, okay, God, here he is. Right. He's yours. We're sending him on. We've done all the praying we can. We've done all the things that we can do. We're connecting with the family. We're doing everything that we can do, but you still feel that pain that's unlike any other pain. And being able to go, this is nothing compared to sending my son to die on a cross. But I know, Jesus, and I know, God, that you have walked through this and you've walked through the worst pain. You're not asking me to walk through anything that you have not walked through. Right. And being able to relate to that and not going, well, he's almighty and he's way up here. No, he's close to the brokenhearted. And I'm able to lean into that. I mean, our relationship with the Lord is so much more enriched and so much more deep because of foster care.
Awesome. So that is why you should do it.
Yes. Yes, that too.
So that is awesome. Well, Britanie, I have so enjoyed this time with you, and I know that our listeners will be better for it. I know that I am. And I just want to thank you for continuing to be that vessel that he's called you to be and walking it out faithfully. Thanks for being here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I hope today's episode was an encouragement to you wherever you are on this foster care journey. Now, we want you to stay connected, so be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Also, we have a ton of great content for you over at theforgotteninitiative.org. Thank you for watching, and I can't wait to see you next time.